Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news on church stories. I am Oyi Okbala. Let's begin. As the rain season approaches in Ambazonia, the nation's farmers are faced with a devastating reality. Years of war and insecurity have ravaged the once thriving agricultural communities, leaving farmers without access to their land, tools, and livelihood. The absence of basic infrastructure, particularly road, has exacerbated these crises, making it impossible for farmers to transport their produce to markets and thereby making the produce expensive in the markets. The situation is there. Farmers are unable to plant, harvest, or provide for their families, leading to widespread food insecurities, poverty, and displacement. The Ambazonian War of Independence has created a humanitarian emergency, with farmers and their families bearing the brunt of the war. The need for roads and infrastructure in Ambazonia cannot be overstated. Without reliable transportation networks, farmers are unable to access markets, and essential goods and services are unable to reach vulnerable communities. The lack of infrastructure has also made it difficult for humanitarian aid to reach those in need, exacerbating the suffering of the Ambazonian people. As the world continues to neglect the plight of Ambazonians, it is essential to highlight the urgent need for infrastructural development, particularly road construction, to support the nation's farmers and vulnerable populations. The provision of roads and infrastructure would not only improve economic outcomes, but also help to alleviate the humanitarian crisis unfolding in Ambazonia. The entire world cannot continue to turn a blind eye to the suffering of Ambazonians people. It is imperative that we take immediate action to address the infrastructural gap in Ambazonia. Support the nation, support the farmers, and work towards a peaceful resolution to the conflict. The future of Ambazonians farmers and the region and its nation's very stability depends on farmers and how much they can produce, knowing that there are no other developmental plan that Ambazonians can get at this point. Well, all these and more would discuss tonight on Undaunted with our in-house analyst barrister Mbeseha, rightfully seated on the other side. But first of all, let's get the prime headlines. Alright, tonight on Undaunted, we'll take a look first of all at the rainy season as it brings uncertainty for farmers in Ambazonia. Families of Pinyin victims are left in agony 3 weeks after Colonial military raid. Also tonight, we'll take a walk into the Colonial army fleeing as ASA attacks at illegal checkpoints. Mayor calls for the return of IDPs amidst insecurity in Ambazonia. On the African scene, EU sanctions Rwanda officials ahead of East Congo peace talks, while Trump signs order to strip funding from Voice of America, accusing it of radical propaganda. Now let's get the news in full briefings. war in Ambazonia has brought immense hardship to farmers who are eager to plant and tend to their crops during the rainy season. However, the war has forced many to flee their homes and seek refuge in city centers as internally displaced persons. This has not only disrupted their livelihood but also exposed them to various challenges including food shortages, inadequate shelter, and limited access to health care. The situation is particularly there for Ambazonian farmers who have been forced to abandon their farms and livelihood due to the war. The colonial army's presence has made it impossible for them to tend to their crops, leading to a significant loss of income and food insecurity. The impact of the war on IDPs in Ambazonia is reminiscent of the situation in other parts of the world, such as the Tigray, Ethiopia, where IDPs face insignificant economic and health challenges due to the war. Similarly, in Ambazonia, the conflict has led to a decline in living standards, increased poverty, and a rise in human rights abuses. It's essential to recognize the devastating effects of the war on Ambazonian farmers and all. The international community must take immediate action to address humanitarian crises and support those affected by the war. Meanwhile, as the rainy season approaches in Ambazonia, the usual excitement and anticipation that comes with the start of a new farming season are noticeably absent. While farmers in other parts of the Cameroons welcome the rain, eager to plant and tend to their crops, Ambazonian farmers are faced with a harsh reality. Years of insecurity and war have forced many farmers to flee their villages, seeking refuge in crowded clusters in their chief towns and different zones. The once thriving agricultural communities now lie abandoned, leaving farmers without access to their land, tools, and livelihoods. The rainy season, which typically marks the beginning of the farming season, serves as a painful reminder of the plight of Ambazonian farmers. Without a secure environment, farmers cannot plant, harvest, or provide for their families. The consequences are far-reaching, with food insecurity, poverty, and displacement becoming increasingly entrenched. The situation is a stark contrast to other regions in Cameroon, where farmers are preparing for a productive farming season. The Ambazonian crisis has created a humanitarian emergency, with farmers and their families bearing the brunt of the conflict. As the rainy season begins, the international community and the world at large must take notice of the plight of Ambazonian farmers. Urgent action is needed to address the root causes of the war, ensure the safe return of displaced farmers, and provide support for agricultural rehabilitation. Until then, the rainy season will remain a bitter reminder of the uncertainty and hardship faced by Ambazonian farmers. Thanks to the war, the senseless war, declared by President Paul Biya in 2017. Well, Barrister Mbeseha, the rainy seasons are here again across the world or across Africa, where they are anticipating the rains to start. Just like the report stated, farmers are eager to return, but for people in Ambazonia, for the mothers, for the farmers, for everyone who likes farming, it's going to be a cry for help. They can't access the farm roads. They can't also, even when they are done farming, they can't even access the traders in the markets to be able to, sell off their goods and all of that, making life in every angle very difficult. Because by the time they pay expensive transports to the market, transport their goods, transport themselves to the markets, the hike in food prices will also skyrocket. So however you look at it, there is suffering, there is pain, there is anger, and for all we know, the world is not talking. For all we know, this will continue to be a regular cry from our end, from your end, and from the ends of Ambazonia until the needful is done. Should I ask this night, Barrister Mbeseha, when will that be? This is how I'll welcome you on tonight's Undaunted.
Thank you for having me. If I can answer your question, when would that be? The answer will be It will happen again when the enemy leaves our territory. It will happen again when Southern Cameroon becomes rare Southern Cameroon, politically and strategically. And that said, let me try to analyze what you have said. You say in 1961, we will purportedly gain independence. We did not gain independence to underdevelop ourselves. The whole idea of independence is self-development. You do your own affairs in your own way. But since 1961, what have we seen? We have seen a deterioration of what we had, a complete disappearance of what existed before then, in the so-called independence by joining. But that is 60 years ago. I think we are dealing with 70 years ago, in the midst of this fighting. The people cannot go back. The rainy season is coming. The question is, are they going back to where? Yes, the rainy season has cut off the roads. There was no road there in the first place. I saw a clip shot there. There was something like a hammock. They call it a hammock, crossing a stream with ropes. It was happening in 1950. It is still happening in Ambazonia in 2025, more than 60 years ago. Why? Why? We must ask ourselves. And then again, I ask, where are these people supposed to return to? They talk about going to their farms. Yes, but forgetting to mention that they even have no place to settle to go to the farms. Why? Because someone, it was not a natural disaster. Some people organized as a government, destroyed them, burnt down their homes, destroyed what was existing as their crops, and sent them running away in the name of a government, in the name of a war that was never ever supposed to be. A war, why? For these poor Ambazonians living everywhere in Ambazonia, having chosen to get independence by getting into association with these people. And if this is independence, one must wonder what the world meant. Because we didn't get a second independence. We were given this independence by the world, the international community, the United Nations. If that's what it meant, then we must be able to answer the question, why all this? And that's why we are calling on the international community. The international community is nobody, but it is a group of nations. And the group of nations usually assembles in different clubs. The biggest club that purportedly gave us independence was the United Nations. It is still there, it has become larger, and they are silent to all what is going on. So what do you expect these Ambazonian people to do? As far as we are concerned, 80-90% of Ambazonians are village dwellers. Ambazonia is not Bamenda town. Ambazonia is not Buya. It is not Kumba. It is not Kumbo town. No. It is the villages. These are people who constitute Ambazonia. 80% of the population lives there. And they have lived there for all their lives. Now if you deprive them of their bare living, their bare subsistence, in other words, the road on which they walk on foot, small markets where they sell whatever thing they have, then they cease to exist. But it is no accident, as I've said. It is a deliberate, calculated attempt by the government of Cameroon to punish them for daring ever to refute the idea that they are one and indivisible. And so you kill them in revenge. Why kill them? To punish them. Why kill them? They're not killing that. We're not talking about a particular village. We're talking about all the villages in Ambazonia. So they are killing a people. They are killing a people. Call them Ambazonians, call them British Southern Cameroonians, call them any name. But they are a people dotted in different villages. And if they are people, and there is collective punishment by burning their houses, burning their farms, destroying whatever thing they had as bridges or hammocks to cross, then there is collective punishment. I think I listened to colleagues on Saturday deal with this thing. This is part and parcel of the so-called genocide, war crimes committed against a people, which should never go unpunished. They'll be punished. We will deal with them at the appropriate time. As I've always said, it is the law. War crimes are imprescriptible. 10 years, 50 years after this, hopefully the perpetrators, the orchestrators, the manipulators will have their day in court. And so, again, they were never rose there. They have not been rose there anyway. Why? Because they decided not to give them roads, to punish them. It has only aggravated the thing now. Because that issue of I saw a hammock hanging there. The hammock has been hanging there since the past 60 years. They are farming to go and say what and to say where. But those are the who can succeed, who have something to say. Last week we saw this thing in something they call Bamunda Market, Manco Market. There's farming cocoyams, vegetables, they can put them on the bare ground, on mud, in a town called Bamenda, a town where the president has decreed leaders. They are selling them. By the time they get to that market, if they are told they have anything to sell, they are extorted on the way, officially, by gendarmes, by policemen, and their surrogates. And so, was this ever supposed to happen to us? No. Again, Bamenda just being an example. They are doing that to come to Bamenda, to go to Kumba, to go to Manfred, to any other urban town, to say, the story is the same. You will not get there. If by the time you get there, they would have extorted much from you. And the country does not survive on vegetables and plantains alone. The community is supposed to exist on producers they also export. That bring it hard-earned cash. Coffee, cocoa, and nothing that you can sell abroad. They have been deprived of all those things. Why? The first thing they did from Yaoundé was to kill the marketing board that is supposed to regulate that trade. The first thing they did was to destroy the cooperatives that gave the people, those farmers, a bargaining power. And so there's every reason we have to fight. There's every reason we will never have to stop until the international community that brought us into this terrible thing opens its eyes and say, no, these people have had enough. It was not our own creation. And so we have to continue to suffer. We have to do our best to survive. But the international community should answer. They should be responsible for what they did. And so again, we call on them. To the partners are individual countries. Somebody has to go to the United Nations and raise that thing up there. You cannot go there and do it. I cannot do that. Only a country can do it. And those countries in particular that voted for this independence by joining in 1961 should be alert. They are witnessing what is going on. Why are they silent about these open crimes? This conspiracy, I don't know. Is it negligence? I don't know. But it's both negligence and conspiracy. They have to wake up to the table and say, we made a mistake. Let this thing end. Nobody gets independence to suffer. People get independence to improve on themselves, improve on their life living styles, improve on their movement, improve on their health care. We lost everything because the international community imposed this on us through the so-called United Nations. Let them wake up, wake up, wake up as we fight to the death. Over to you.
Oh wow. I love how calmly you discussed that. But moving on, still on the war, still on the need for the independence that we are seeking. Well, in a bold and daring operation, Ambazonian State Army fighters launched a surprise attack on the Colonial Army checkpoint in the Atlantic zone of Fako on the 15th of March. Now, the Colonial soldiers, caught off guard and vastly outmaneuvered, fled the scene in disarray, abandoning their weapons and equipment. Now, this latest development is a testament to the growing strength and determination of the Ambazonian State Army, because they have continued to resist the colonial occupation from their homeland. The ASA fighters have once again demonstrated their ability to challenge the colonial forces and assert their control over Ambazonian territory. The attack on the colonial checkpoint is also a clear indication that the Ambazonian people will no longer tolerate the colonial occupation and the occupying human rights abuses, exploitation, and oppression. The SA fighters are fighting for the freedom and independence of Ambazonia, and their bravery and sacrifice will not be in vain. As the situation continues to unfold, it is clear that the Ambazonian State Army will continue to play a crucial role in the struggle for independence and self-determination. The international community, the UN, must take note of the legitimate aspiration of the Ambazonian people and support their right to freedom and independence. And so this report gives us that the attack was launched in the early hours of the morning. The fighters took the military men unawares as they stormed the area unprepared. The soldiers fled, abandoning their weapons. Local residents heard the gunfire and saw soldiers escaping. The defense fighters then seized the abandoned weapons. FACO has seen many clashes between the colonial government forces and the ASA, which have often than not ended in catastrophe. So far, the colonial authorities have not released any official statements about the attack. However, it is typical of the Republic of Cameroon not to acknowledge the damages caused by the ASA against their own. Residents are advised to stay alert and report any unusual activities to local authorities. But at the end of the day, what Ambazonians truly desire is the independence and not necessarily the fight. Because if we go ahead to talk about the fight, the people are the ones losing their lives. For example, in Pinyin, 3 weeks have passed since the brutal colonial military raid in Pinyin, which left 6 civilians dead and several young men missing. The ill silence from Black Republic to Cameroon government has only added to the anguish of the families affected, raising grave concerns about human rights abuses in the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. The La Republic to Cameroon refusal to acknowledge or investigate the atrocities committed in Pinyin has sent a chilling message. Ambazonian lives do not matter. With the government's inaction, it has perpetuated a culture of impunity, emboldening colonial forces to continue their reign of terror against innocent civilians. The families of the victims are left to suffer in silence, with no answers, no justice, and no support. The trauma and pain inflicted upon them will linger for years to come. A stark reminder of La Republic to Cameroon's callous disregard for Ambazonian lives. As La Republic to Cameroon, France, the UN, remains largely silent, it is imperative that we shed light on these heinous crimes and demand accountability from La Republic to Cameroon government. The people of Ambazonia deserve justice, and it is our collective responsibility to ensure that their voices are heard. It is our collective activities. So just in case you're not aware, on the 23rd of February, let me take you back to this incident that happened in Pinyin. A colonial military operation in Pinyin ended in tragedy. A total of 6 unarmed civilians were killed, and La Republic to Cameroon claimed these were separatist fighters. However, many locals have denied this statement. Witnesses described it as a chaotic scene where armed men in military uniforms entered a local bar, picked and executed victims in front of others. Several young men were taken during the raid without any explanations given to their families till now. The colonial government has not uttered a word about these missing individuals. On February 15, a week before the raid, a mob in Pinyin killed 2 people suspecting them of being Ambazonian fighters. Meanwhile, the people of Pinyin are demanding answers. They are demanding justice from La Republic to Cameroon for the dead and are expressly demanding for the release of those still missing. And so you look at it from every angle. Death here and there, killings here and there. The people are unsure of who they are. They are unsure of who they are even fighting with. It's really a sad one. Bryce Mbeseha. I needed to bring this update from Pinyin because somewhere while reading some reports I saw where a particular DO, a particular minister so went to see people who were raided somewhere in La Republic to Cameroon, and then it dawned on me that it's not like they are not aware. I mean, these leaders in La Republic to Cameroon, they are aware of all of these things that are happening, but they only choose who they feel deserve their compassion, who they feel deserves empathy and all of that, but definitely not Ambazonians or any place in Ambazonia, so to speak. So this is really sad. They extort, they kill, they do everything, but definitely not to show compassion, definitely not to send succor, not to send help, not to send love, no empathy whatsoever for Ambazonians. And this is how the people will keep suffering, will keep counting their losses over and over and over and over again. It's a very sad situation here.
It's actually sad. But it is very, very sad simply because it looks to me that we Ambazonians, we don't understand what is going on. Because if we are talking that we've not had an explanation from the enemy, we have not had an excuse. Because it looks like we're expecting excuses. No, they have done exactly what they wanted to do. A military raid is not something coincidental. It's well planned. And so it was well planned. They went down there and killed the people. They knew that they were going to kill them. Who were they trying to kill? They were trying to kill what they call Amber boys. What was an Amber boy? In other language, they say separatists. In the simplest language, they call it Anglophones. So anybody who identifies himself as an Anglophone in Cameroon is a separatist. He's also a criminal. And so it is not an error expecting them to give an excuse is trying to impose on them that they made a mistake. It's trying to imagine that somebody hides by the corner of the house, rapes your wife, you have been waiting there for 2 hours, 3 hours, rapes your wife, and you expect him to say I made a mistake. No. You sat there quietly, when the woman will come out to go to the farm or to go fetch water, and you catch her. So it's not made an error. The target was the same. And he's done exactly what he was supposed to do. We're expecting, that's why I say we don't understand what this boy doing. You're expecting these people to apologize, to make a statement in this incidents in Pinyin, as if they had given one for the death of Florence Ayafo, as if they are giving an excuse for Ngaribu, as if they have punished anybody for slicing off the head of Wazizi. And so these are people that are doing exactly what their government or their leaders have told them to do. And then we'll make, again, when we say families of Pinyin, who are these families? These people who died, people have been dying in Pinyin for decades. For as long as Pinyin has existed, they have buried their own children who have died natural deaths, who have been sick and died. But why? What are we talking about? Who are those supposed to be the family of the 6 Pinyin boys? Who are those supposed to be? They're not just supposed to be their fathers and mothers. They are supposed to be more than that. Because they were killed in the context of war, in the political context of they being Ambazonians. So who are supposed to be their families? They are supposed to have political families who live in that area. The mayors, the representatives who go to parliament, those who go to the senate, those who have a structure there. They have, I think Pinyin is near Santa. The ministers who come from there, that's their political family. What have they done? What have they said about the killings of these poor children? To the best of my knowledge, they have been silent. Are they accomplices to this crime? Maybe. But strongly I feel they are accomplices. Otherwise, what does it cost to cry out for a wrongdoing? They are not doing that. They are keeping silent because they are accomplices. And again, as I said earlier in this segment, we overheard this thing over the weekend about genocide. Genocide is killing people for who they are, not for what they have done. If the story is true, these guys were drinking in a bar. A bar is meant for people to go there and drink. What's wrong with that? They go there and kill them. What's their crime? The only crime which is imaginable is that they knew that young men will come to drink in that spot. Young men are supposed to be the ones who fight in a war. And so they suspect these people will fight for Ambazonians today or tomorrow. And the best thing to do is to eliminate them. And they did. Is there any war crime more than that? Do you need any other evidence? Certainly not. That's a war crime per se. Straightforward. And so these criminals, they have accomplices. A war crime is not just that you go and catch the man who opened the fire. There are accomplices, those who keep the commands. There are those who keep silent when they should have made noise. In the language of Ali Bongo, who should have just at least made noise. This thing is wrong. They are not doing it. Who are those people who should make this noise at the very least? The mayor of Santar, the MPs who come from there, they are not doing it. Not because they don't know. They are not doing it because they will be paid for it. The salary they earn as mayors, the salary they earn as MPs, as senators, is taxpayers' money. Their role, and they are bribed to keep quiet. So these people, in the proper investigation, if I were one in charge, so they will go on trial for their conspiratorial silence, because the silence is encouraging the enemy to do more of what they are doing. And so the Pinyin families and victims will feel bad, but rest assured that these actions are not going to go unpunished forever. Over to you.
Please, Barrister Mbeseha, let me ask here before we move forward. You clearly stated that those who are supposed to, come out to speak on behalf of the people are, of course, the funds or the SDOs and the mayors and whatever, but they've been paid. Have they been paid to keep quiet that people did not die or death or killings are not happening in their, in their counties or in their local government areas, or have they been paid to say that everyone who has been killed are all Amber fighters? What do you think is the narrative? Because at the end of the day, they are all people under their leadership, under their authority. So are they going to allow their children just to die like that and keep quiet? How scary or how inhuman can that be?
Their silence might be for different reasons. One of the reasons is to secure their own positions. Because the people are mentioned as MPs, as senators, they are not body elected by anybody. They are appointed from here one day. If you say something that is contrary to what they say or to what they do, they punish you. The first punishment they do to you is take you out of their job. That job is good money. They are paying you for doing nothing. You just sit there doing nothing. But to make it an extension, which is what is important here, all these political people are being paid, directly or indirectly, so they will naturally keep quiet because they belong to a political club called the CPDM. It is this political club that is the government that declared this war on us. So they are accomplices politically, and they become accomplices criminally. But the larger context of it is, this is Pinyin. Pinyin is in Bamenda. We have seen religious authorities who are supposed to be the moral fabric of the community, bishops, priests, imams, they have kept quiet. How much does it cost them to denounce this type of outright injustice done on men, done on people? It costs them nothing. But they are prepared to go to here one day, sit in the Grand National Dialogue and purport to be finding solutions. They are there. They are prepared to go to here when they go to it today and say, well, the president is talking to us about killing these people anyway, and you are doing nothing. You are keeping silent. Public denunciation is a very powerful weapon. Because when something is publicly denounced, it serves as evidence that this thing is gruesomely wrong. So if these religious authorities are keeping quiet, it's not because they don't know. Because the religious authorities are very involved in this struggle. The fact that Archbishop Andrew come to America, goes to London, travel around where seeking peace. It's not a secret. So we expect to see them come out, Funke is no longer there, to denounce this sort of things publicly. Take the podium. Because the religious authorities, be it in the mosque, be it in the Presbyterian church, Catholic church, Baptist, whatever church it is, they have a power. They have the power to deliver the message. Because there's no one challenging them from the crowd. They have not done it. Therefore, who are they? Are these people, most of whom are Ambazonians? Can they claim that they don't know what happened in Pinyin? Can they claim that they didn't know? They didn't see these pictures? Of course, they cannot claim that. Maybe they would, but that would be greatly unfair, greatly dishonest to say they didn't know it. Either way, they were Christians or leaders in churches. They should have been able to attend the funerals of those guys in Pinyin. It's within a drivable distance. But they wouldn't do it. They will come around here and tell, oh, well, let us bring peace. And some of them will say, nah, we just want peace without justice. Again, no peace without justice. This people is not because they don't know. They know all those things. I think Atanganji is supposed to come from that area. I think Atanganji is Odo. He knows the thing. Atanganji, besides being a minister, has been to prison. He knows the pains of being in prison unjustly. And so it's not because they don't know. These are just people who would do anything and everything possible to preserve their political fortunes, which political fortunes in Cameroon are heavily paid for. They pay for them, they pay them to sit in those offices and do nothing, absolutely nothing. We will not even hear, again, this is Pinyin, somewhere in the northwest, not too far from Bamenda. We will not hear the French ambassador who was there a few days after or before. Will tell, oh, no mercy has returned. We are coming with billions to help you. A few months after that, we are coming with the African community, whether the European Union or whatever thing he calls it, to help you. If you can come out and call for an end to the war and promise all this, you should be able to stand there also and say, we realize that people were shot and killed unjustly in Pinyin. He wouldn't do that. If he doesn't know, he knows those things. Once the French ambassador knows, the French government knows. Once the French government knows, and they are bringing the allies, the European Union or whatever thing they call it, it means the European Union knows. All members of the European Union, all members of all those communities there constitute what we call the United Nations as well. And so why are they keeping this silence over these gruesome acts? Unless they are fooling themselves to think that an ordinary Ambazonian, and most particularly the one that's living in Pinyin, we just forget, oh, this children mean nothing for us. You kill them, that's fine. As long as there's one individual Cameroon, we're happy that our children died. We're happy that you just shot them and went away. But again, if my memory is right, this is Pinyin. This time they killed on the 6th. Earlier, 2, 3, 4 years ago, they brought a whole truck of people. They went to Pinyin, if I'm not mistaken. Killed people like that in another hotel. Loaded them to act like animals in a truck. And the people said nothing. The mayors of Santa said nothing. The great-grandma mayors of Bamenda said nothing. The CPD and first vice president sitting in Mbeseha said nothing. There's something wrong with these people. Over to you.
Barrister Mbeseha, you talked about the UN. You talked about the UN in your speech, and you said the UN are those who are likely to do something when, instead of just calling the international community like we would always do. As someone who has been with the UN, I know that the government led by President Samuel Ikomen-Sako is really doing a lot when it comes to the diplomatic side and the diplomatic moves and all of that, the calls and the rest. They are doing their best. But a people's voice is always strong when they are together. The people are the ones crying. The people are the ones feeling the brunt of all of this. When they say when two elephants fight, what do you think that the people, the Ambazonians, those who are watching from the home front at this point, what do you think that they can also do on their own to get the attention of the UN at this point as a people? who are bearing the brunt of this war?
I think what they ought to do, or what they're supposed to do, is what we're doing now is part of what they're supposed to do. Because nobody can convince me that this ABC thing that we're talking here is only watched by Ambazonians. The people who are watching this story, they are watching us right now, including the French, the British, the Americans. This is part of it. And then there are people of Ambazonia who have other connections beyond ABC or whatever is broadcast publicly. Like you said, the President Sarko, they have other connections. They can talk to these people directly by phone. In fact, a one-to-one discussion on phone or any other discussion is possible. They just need to be reminded. Because, again, what is happening to us is a conspiracy of the United Nations. And these United Nations, to say the least, in terms of technique, is practically owned by France with a veto power, owned by Britain, which has a veto power, owned by the United States, which has a veto power, owned by Russia and China. All these five most powerful permanent members of the Security Council have embassies in Yaoundé. So what goes on in Bamenda, what goes on in Mamfe, in Kumba, in Bui, they are supposed to take judicial notice of those things and inform their governments. Their governments were the principal conspirators of 1961 who brought us into this. So these are different avenues, which I set it right here. The French ambassador with their European partners could not have come to Bamenda without knowing what happened there. So they are aware of those things, but they need to push. They need to be pushed tactically, and they need to be shamed. Pops were doing here. This is not the strategy. This is a strategy. We just shame them because they are supposed to know this. When President Sarko or whoever wants to meet them diplomatically, maybe he will not say it the way I'm saying it. They might be they might patting on the bar and say drinking a drink in the bar. But this public shaming is part of the strategy. You shame them publicly for keeping quiet when these things are happening to us. So I can only imagine that we are doing our best. The president, who has a lot of contacts with these people, is doing his best. Hopefully, something will come out of it. And for others, especially Ambazonia, we have so many groups in Ambazonia that claim to represent Ambazonia. Push your own buttons wherever you find yourselves. Push your own buttons, and then you have something. If they had pushed, if Mr. Choayaba, this is just an illustration, has pushed his buttons very, very well in Norway, where he lived. Norway is a country with all of the rights. He had pushed his way in this struggle very, very well. We'll be talking something differently. But he pushed the wrong button by instead doing harm to find himself in jail. Can he from jail postulate this news out? And so the president and other leaders, whoever, other friends, whoever sympathizing with us can do something, we should do something. We would rather encourage the president to go on pressing the buttons that he knows, that he has, to make sure this thing is not forgotten. We urge everybody to put these things out, because the people of the ICC, they are watching us too. ICC is not better of sticks. They are watching us too. And so with all this combination of effort, we believe we will get out of it. We believe the perpetrators of those acts will not go unpunished. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. Now, moving on to some of the gimmicks that we find in this struggle and this war. The mayor of Womb Council, the Gambon, Anthony, recently called for internally displaced persons, IDPs, to return home during a meeting in Bamenda. However, his appeal has raised concerns about security, with many questioning the mayor's true motives. But critics argue that Anthony's call is driven by selfish reasons, aiming to promote a narrative that things are returning to normalcy, rather than genuinely prioritizing the well-being of IDPs. Moreover, if they are IDPs, they do not need to be far away from home. Well, the security situation in the region, Ambazonia, remains a significant concern, and many IDPs may not feel safe to return homes. Anthony's statement comes amidst efforts to promote development and collaboration within the community. Well, he highlighted some of these achievements within the municipality of Menchum and encouraged sons and daughters of Menchum to return home. However, the timing and motivation behind this call have sparked skepticism. I mean, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the insecurities happening in Pinyin and other areas, and you're asking people to come home. Well, it's worth noting that in quote, northwest and southwest areas have been affected by what the colonial government calls the Anglophone crisis, which has led to significant humanitarian challenges, including displacement and human rights abuses. Any efforts to promote return and reintegration must prioritize the safety, dignity, well-being of these persons. At the Agam community, Bamenda's recent General Assembly meeting in Bamenda, the colonial mayor of the Womb Council urged internally displaced persons to return to their localities despite the ongoing war of independence in Ambazonia. So this call has raised concerns among many as the threats that led to the displacement of these individuals are still prevalent. This is what we are talking about. Critics argue that the mayor's decision is just for his political gains, which Barrister Mbeseha has also highlighted, over the security and well-being of the people. By encouraging IDP to return, Mayor Digambong Anthony is attempting to demonstrate his productivity to his superiors rather than ensuring the safety of his people or the people under his care. The role of a mayor, as outlined in local government guidelines, is to act as a chief executive officer responsible for executing official documents and overseeing various administrative duties. However, in this instance, as the case may be, the mayor's actions seem to be driven by political motivation rather than a genuine concern for the welfare of his constituents. The situation highlights the importance of prioritizing the security and well-being of people, particularly in times of conflict, in times of war, in times of senseless killings. As the mayor's call for IDPs to return has sparked concerns, it remains to be seen how this situation will unfold and what measures will be taken to ensure the safety of those affected. What do you call this? Well, this is a hypocritical, given that the colonial mayor can only move about in his constituency under tight security and tight conditions. Are the people also going to have tight securities to move around? Will they? Very hypocritical, I must say here. Barrister Mbeseha. Well, from the courtroom, we actually think that is a very hypocritical statement, and it's just one that tries to change the narrative, trying to say what is not. We are talking about the lives that are being lost, and you're asking people who are probably safe wherever they are to return to where they will be killed eventually.
I don't think the mayor or whoever is asking the people to return there because he loves them. You see, you must understand the context in which they are acting. This is 2025. It's the year for elections in Cameroon. And so the return of internally displaced people is a very important aspect of winning an election, especially by the CPDM. And so they are only trying to trap these people to come back home so that they could have something they will call a vote. Those mayors are supposed to be all voted by something they call CPDM, or appointed by some people in Yaoundé they call CPDM. So you must look at it only in that context. Because, they are asking them to return from where? Actually, from where? Does the mayor know where the internally displaced went to? Does he know them? He doesn't know. But in general, I will understand that most of the internally displaced people in Ambazonia during this so-called war, a good number of them are found in Bafoussam, a good number of them are found in Yaoundé, a good number of them are found in Douala. I'm talking about the internally displaced, and maybe in Bamenda, for those who left the villages and came there, Okuma and Boya. But the issue here is, it is people very much care for the internally displaced. They have set up some structures there which are non-functional by so-called Cameroon government. What does the regional council of the Northwest, they call it, including the House of Chiefs, plus the Regional Council in Mbeseha, plus all the institutions that go with it, call it House of Chiefs. What have they done? Have they, for example, simple as this, gone to the mayor or the Constitutional Council of the Littoral and Douala and said, look, we have so many of our people here. Let us help identify them to help them. Zero action. The same thing with the ones in Mbeseha. But they are pleading for people to come home as if normalcy has returned. No normalcy has returned. They are asking the people to come back to their deaths. And so they are just pretending. You see, those mayors that who are making those calls, they are not children. They find they are old people. They have children. They have wives. And so they cannot pretend not to know. It is 7 years running. Is it now that they think that they can force the people to come back? Of course. They want to gain some political favors from Yaoundé. I watched their debates yesterday on different forums, different platforms there. And normalcy has returned. It's returning. Only pockets of what are happening. Elections are coming to vote for Paul Biya. That's the context in which they are making that noise. And poor mayors, they are criminals by association. We expect you people to do the right thing. If you have not done that, these are mayors. They don't have a lot of power other than what I have just said. But you also have in those areas, this Northwest, call it in their own language, or the Southwest, we have people called senators, or people called parliamentarians who sit in Yaoundé. What have they done? They know, like all of us, that we have thousands upon thousands of refugees resulting from this war, hosted by Nigeria and Ghana and many other countries. Refugees living abroad are the competence of the national government in Yaoundé. What have the senators, the MPs, the ministers done just to raise awareness? You have need to raise awareness because they are aware. What have they done? They say we have thousands of people, hundreds of people in Nigeria who are refugees. To raise these things officially, it has not been done. Nowhere, nothing like that. The last we heard of it was from Mr. Wilbur, I think it was 2017, who stole the floor of Parliament to make his point. And after that, they chased him away. He ran for his life. He's probably living abroad. What have his colleagues said? Nobody will dare open his mouth or her mouth. We saw people like who call themselves Madam, what do you call that senator from Bamenda, who claimed to be adopted. They came back in helicopters, in tracksuits, and found themselves back in Yaoundé. What have they said? Nothing. And so it's orchestrated. This is an election year in Cameroon. 2025, 2026. Those councils will be renewed sometime in December. So they are out for pure political campaign. First, to get their champion, or his surrogate, Mr. Paul Biya, or somebody appointed by him, to take over the seat and continue to work. They want to get people, their own people, appointed into councils, which are supposed to have elected those mayors in December or sometimes around that time, so they can continue the thing. What is their record for the past 5 years in this struggle? What is their record? Nothing. Nothing. Other than empty calls for return to normalcy. We are returning to normalcy, saying that what was abnormal in the first place, and what caused the abnormality that you are returning to normalcy. You don't address that, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. At least the other Ambazonian is educated enough. If there's normalcy, it means there was something abnormal before. What was abnormal and what was the cause of the abnormality? If you go back to that, we simply spoken has been told, we have been told by international partners, by friends and sympathizers. Go back to the root causes of the problem and find the solution to the problem. Full stop. Mr. Mayor, you're missing your point. Governors, presidents of regional assemblies and whatever name you give yourselves. You're wasting your time. The only thing to do is tell Yaoundé, that's appointed you, that we are not the root cause of the problem. Let Yaoundé address the root causes of the problem, and the matter is over. And I remember saying it last week. The root cause of this problem is occupation. We don't want the French. If the French can tell their people, look, you made a mistake, pack out of these people. You are occupation force. Move out of this place. That will end the battle. We'll look for a way to bring back our people. We'll resettle them where we want. We'll pick the pieces where they are. Over to you.
All right, Barrister Mbeseha, thank you so much for that sound rendition there. It's at this point that we would draw the curtains from the news from the home front with you tonight. Tomorrow will be another day to have a great interaction with you. We'll let you go while we head over to the African and news across the globe.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Coming up next is news across Africa. Tonight, the EU sanctions Rwanda officials ahead of the East Congo peace talks. The European Union has sanctioned 9 people and a gold refinery on Monday in connection with a Rwanda-backed rebel in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, a day before peace talks scheduled in Angola between M23 rebels and the Congolese government. The sanctions targeted M23 political leader Bertrand Bisimwa and Rwandan army commanders. They were also applied to the chief executives of Rwanda Mines, Petroleum and Gas Board, and the Gasabo Gold Refinery in Kigali, which the EU accused of illicitly exporting natural resources from Congo. Amid a flurry of diplomatic activity, a rebel alliance that includes M23 confirmed it would send a 5-member delegation to Tuesday's talks in Luanda, which could mark M23's first direct negotiations with the Congolese government. Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi's office said on Sunday that Kinshasa would send representatives to Luanda, reversing the government's long-standing vow not to negotiate with the group, which it has dismissed as a mere front for the Rwandan government. Meanwhile, pressure has been growing on Tshisekedi to renegotiate and negotiate with M23 after a series of battlefield setbacks since the rebels seized eastern Congo's 2 biggest cities and a host of smaller localities. Well, according to the Congolese government, the conflict has killed at least 7,000 people this year, and hundreds of thousands have been displaced. This conflict is rooted in the spillover into Congo of Rwanda's 1994 genocide and the struggle for control of Congo's vast mineral resources, many of which are used in batteries used for electric vehicles and other electronic products. However, the United Nations and international powers accuse Rwanda of providing arms and sending soldiers to fight with the M23 rebels. Rwanda says its forces are acting in self-defense against Congo's army and militias hostile at Kigali. Still, Western countries have taken measures against Rwanda over the conflict, including the withholding of development aid by Britain and Germany. But Kigali has been defiant. On Monday, it announced it was severing diplomatic relations with Belgium, the former colonial power in Rwanda and Congo, and giving Belgian diplomats 48 hours to leave. This move has called for strong EU's action against Kigali of using lies and manipulation to secure an unjustified hostile opinion of Rwanda. Belgium's Foreign Affairs Minister Maxime Prevot said Brazil would reciprocate by declaring Rwandan diplomats personnel non grata, calling Kigali's move disproportionate previous rounds of EU sanctions have targeted M23 commanders and Rwanda's army officials. Meanwhile, the European Parliament called on the EU's executive last month to suspend a memorandum of understanding from last year that aims to support Rwandan supplies of strategic minerals. The EU's foreign policy chief said the agreement was under review. Well, that's it for tonight's report on the African scene. Coming up next is news across the globe. President Donald Trump's recent order to strip back federally funded news organization Voice of America has sparked controversy. Trump accused VOA, Voice of America, of being anti-Trump and radical, aiming to ensure taxpayers are no longer on the hook for radical propaganda. VOA, established during the World War II to counter Nazi propaganda, boasts a massive global audience, reaching hundreds of millions weekly. The organization's director, Mike Abramowitz, revealed that nearly his entire staff of 1,300 have been put on paid leave amidst the turmoil. It's worth noting that Voice of America has undergone leadership changes in recent years. Yolanda Lopez, who served as acting director, played a crucial role in restoring the organization's integrity and independence during the tumultuous period. Lopez's efforts led to a significant improvement in employee engagement and also leadership integrity, as evident in the Federal Employees Viewpoint Survey. The current situation raises concerns about the impact of political influence on independent news organizations like VOA. As the situation unfolds, it remains essential to prioritize the integrity and independence of journalism. Well, we'll definitely bring you up to speed with that part of the news. But still on Trump, what does he have with Somaliland? Well, the Trump administration is reportedly considering a deal with Somaliland, where the U.S. would partially recognize the territory's independence in exchange for permission to build a naval base. Discussions are underway for a possible agreement that would see the U.S. establish a military base near the port of Berbera on the Red Sea coast. This development comes as Somaliland has been seeking international recognition for decades. The territory declared independent from Somalia in 1991, but has not been recognized by the international community. The U.S. is reportedly interested in establishing a military presence in the region to counter the growing influence of China, which has a military base in nearby Djibouti. Now, the proposed deal has sparked concerns among some Somalilanders who worry that hosting a U.S. military base could make the territory a target for terrorist attacks. Others are concerned that the deal could undermine Somaliland's sovereignty and independence. That's not all. What's happening in the White House? White House has slammed attempts over Venezuela's gang members' deportation despite court rulings to halt flights. The U.S. deported more than 250 mainly Venezuelan alleged gang members to El Salvador despite a U.S. judge ruling to halt the fights on Saturday after Donald Trump's controversially invoked the Alien Enemies Act, a 1798 law meant only to be used in wartime, accusing them of unlawful infiltration in the U.S. El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, said 238 members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua and 23 members of the Salvadoran gang MS-13 had arrived and were in custody as part of a deal which the U.S. will pay the Central American country to hold them in its 40,000 person capacity terrorism confinement center. The confirmation came hours after a U.S. federal judge expanded his ruling temporarily, blocking the Trump administration from invoking the Alien Enemies Act, a wartime authority that allows the president broad leeway on policy and executive action to speed up mass deportation. Meanwhile, the White House said the judge had no authority to block the deportation. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said in a statement, a single judge in a single city cannot direct the movement of an aircraft full of foreign alien terrorists who were physically expelled from the U.S. soil. She said the court had no lawful basis, as she argued that the order itself did not need to be followed in the first place, and the gangsters must be held accountable for their heinous crimes. But however, the U.S. District Judge James Boasberg had attempted to halt the deportation for all individuals deemed eligible for removal under Trump's proclamation, which was issued on Friday. Boasberg also ordered deportation flights already in the air to return to the U.S. At this time, the flight had arrived El Salvador with over 250 gangsters, including 2 dangerous top MS-13 leaders, plus 21 of its most wanted to face jail. And so this move has sparked severe controversies among Democrats as White House denies defying judge's order. However, the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi slammed Judge Boasberg's stay on deportations with the claim that the order disregards well-established authority regarding President Trump's power and it puts the public and law enforcement at risk. But lawyers for the American Civil Liberties Union contends that President Trump does not have the authority to use the law against a criminal gang rather than a recognized state. Still, at the heat of the issue, the U.S. District Judge has demanded explanations as to the reasons his orders were not adhered to. However, the coming days will testify to the right stance. Alright, this is where we draw the curtain on tonight's Undaunted. Before we go, let's give you the recap of the major stories. Tonight on Undaunted, we took a look at the rainy seasons coming and how uncertain it will be for Ambazonian farmers. Also tonight, families of being victims has been left in agony 3 weeks after Colonial raid. Tonight, we took a look at the Colonial army fleeing from the ASA attack at their illegal checkpoints. Also tonight, we told you that the mayor of Womb has called for IDPs to return amidst insecurity. On the African scene, EU has sanctioned Rwandan officials ahead of the East Congo peace talks, while Trump has signed order to strip funding from Voice of America, accusing it of radical propaganda. That's it for tonight's Undaunted. Bringing to the news on Church Stories. On behalf of Barrister Mbeseha and the team of technicians is good night and God bless.